A good Monday morning to those watching this as it comes out. If you're not watching as it comes out, have a fantastic time or wherever you are and whatever time it is for you. We are going to be going over the fire in California. Everyone's talking about it. So you know how we do it. We're going to go over it from a bunch of different sources. We're going to be across the spectrum. Starting out with Good Morning America, pretty vanilla source.
These fires impacting so many communities across Southern California, wiping out multi-million-dollar homes in the Pacific Palisades and Malibu, and now growing questions about water supply issues firefighters had to deal with. ABC's Jacqueline Lee joins us now from Malibu. Jacqueline, good morning.
Malibu's most wanted.
Well, good morning. There is destruction everywhere we look. We are currently standing in a shopping center here in Malibu where there used to be a bunch of small businesses, but as you can see, they are gone.
Much smaller now.
The only thing standing is a staircase. There's a lot of ash, debris, and some framing left behind. And what you can see is we are across the street from the Pacific Ocean, from Pacific Coast Highway, and that place is famous for just the sheer amount of luxury beachfront properties. That is no longer there.
Oh, wow.
It is wiped from the map. And what that shows us is this Palisades fire burned so quickly to the south.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to joke, but it's ironic that global warming, they were talking about sea level rise impacting these houses, right? And Ben Shapiro with the famous, if the sea level rises, you could just sell your house and buy one more inland, right? And they're like, who's going to buy the house? But rather than sea level rise, you could be right next to the sea and be so dry that your entire community burns down.
That the only thing stopping it was the Pacific Ocean. Now this morning we are learning more about water supply issues. A local fire captain telling ABC News that when a structure with a sprinkler system burns down, that water from that system continues to flow, that impacting the water supply and losing pressure for those firefighters fighting these fires here in Los Angeles. In addition, we're learning that a nearby 117 million gallon reservoir, it was taken offline for repairs before the fires, a brush fire.
So there's a little bit to that, right? All these right-wingers are really mad at DEI and the ladies that are running the fire department and the county, the governors and this and that and whatnot, and Gavin Newsom. So if you break all the water lines, that's what it's going to have less pressure, right? So you got a fire blowing around, blazing like this. It's going to burst the water lines. One, the water's going to get hot and boil and pop the pipes. And two, the pipes are going to melt. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on with this, right? Sorry about the siren in the background. I live in a busy spot. What was the second one? Oh, yes, this reservoir not being filled. This is the non-fire season. It's supposed to be the wet season, the rainy season. So this is the time that you would schedule maintenance for your things when you don't expect fires to be there. But that is being drier and drier and drier all the time. The fire season is now expanding, and this is the type of thing that'll happen.
Are burning close to that facility. Governor Newsom is demanding an investigation into the water issues. We also know the LA Fire Commission sent a report by the fire chief to Mayor Karen Bass just weeks ago, raising the alarm about cuts to the fire department's budget. There are, of course, a lot more questions than answers this morning. And coming up in the next half hour,
Okay, and I see the thing about the budget earlier. I'm going to see if I can find it. I don't know. It's kind of deep in my list now. But they were saying the budget is just more of a plan. Like people, they said the fire department last year went over budget like $90 million or $70 million. It was like a really big number. So like a budget is just a plan. But if you're like the police department or the fire department or even like the military, you go over budget all the time. And so you don't basically it's saying that if they cut, what was it? It was like 17 or 70, I forget, it was something with the 7 million, and it was only 2% of the budget, but if they cut it and they need to spend it, they'll still spend it and go over budget.
have more details about the human toll of these devastating fires. Rhiannon.
All right, Jacqueline Lee, thank you. And a thank you to all the reporters bringing us these devastating images. Our hearts just break for everyone impacted. Let's get over to the forecast now. More Santa Ana winds are headed to California this week. Samara Theodore is here with that. Samara, Mother Nature not giving us any relief.
No, Rhiannon, but this morning is crucial to firefighters as the winds have gone down. It's their time to make headway because by this afternoon into this evening, those winds are going to pick back up. So we're getting that classic setup back in play, winds increasing again tonight. This is going to lead to that critical fire risk from Malibu and Simi Valley into San Fernando, Riverside, Anaheim, Ontario. Wind gusts could be as high as 65 miles per hour. Again, we could be in for a relative humidity between 10 to 20%. And it's not just the fires, it's also that smoke coming along with the fires here. We have that apocalyptic low-level smoke.
You don't want that
headed
smoke. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fires going right now. I think that is down to 3.
Santa Monica reducing air quality even as far south as Redondo Beach. Gio?
Let's hope that they can contain more of those fires before those winds move in. All right, Samara, thank you so much.
Good Morning America is very mainstream, very vanilla, very mild, right? You're not going to get a whole lot of hard-hitting news from them. You're just going to get like you're going to get the news. I guess if it's hard news, it might be hard-hitting, but they're not going to give you a whole bunch of crazy opinion. Wall Street Journal, you're going to get a little bit more right-wing, right? They're more capitalist, more Wall Street. It says it in the name.
When fire hydrants ran dry in the Pacific Palisades, it sparked a wave of criticism and even misinformation.
Because Karen Bass didn't fill the reservoirs. So all the fire reservoirs were not, so the fire trucks are there.
She didn't fill the reservoirs, he's saying. There was one that wasn't filled. They said the rest were full. But the one was under maintenance. And again, it wasn't fire season.
Fill the reservoirs. So all the fire reservoirs were not, so the fire trucks are there, they couldn't pump water.
They cut the water off.
They don't have water.
Surveys show LA did have water, but amid widespread frustration and a report that a local reservoir in the Palisades was offline and empty due to repairs, California Governor Gavin Newsom issued a review of Los Angeles water and power.
Season.
Here's how the water supply system works and what we know about why hydrants ran out of water at the height of the Palisades fire. About 2/3 of LA County's water comes from sources outside of LA. And because LA is surrounded by mountains and hills, much of that water has to be pushed up to higher elevations.
Well, water is heavy.
Ooh, like your mama, not
so
kid.
It takes energy to pump it upstream.
Eric Porce, director of the California Institute for Water Resources, says you can think of the system sort of like a tree with interconnected branches. There are big trunk mains that move water from a source, like a water treatment plant or a reservoir, and carry it to smaller distribution mains which split off from the trunk. From there, the water is moved through even smaller pipes or lateral lines that carry water to homes, businesses, and fire hydrants. In some areas,
you would think that since fire is so important, you might have a separate line for the fire hydrants. See how it's one big tree thing right here and they go to all the stuff? Say you had another artery, I don't know what you'd call it. It'd be, obviously when it's pipes, it's artificial, and this tree, it's living. But say from the big thing here, you would have a pipe that's just for the fire hydrants and for the fire stuff, or maybe even just the fire hydrants, not even like the sprinklers, right? Just the fire hydrants, so that they would always have pressure. And so you could block these off, right, and cap this here, and keep the water pressure from here going into the smaller one that would go to the fire hydrants aside them, right? So we could there could be a clamp or something, that they could close.
tanks and reservoirs are placed throughout the system to help maintain pressure, because pressure is what pushes water into all of the nodes.
So that would be where the clamp was. I stopped it a little soon, right? So we would have the big parts going to these things, and then from here, these would have this one big whatever you call it, branch going to all the houses and sprinklers and everything, and then a separate one that could probably even be a little smaller because you don't use it all the time. It doesn't need to be quite this big. It just needs the water pressure, and if once we clamp this off, we still have the same amount of water. And it's I don't know. They would do the size of the pipe. I'm not an architect.
But during the LA wildfires, officials said intense demand overwhelmed the system, which drained several tanks and meant that there wasn't enough pressure to push water to hydrants up in the Palisades.
So I want to make sure that you understand there's water in the trunk line that just cannot get off the hill because we cannot fill it tank fast enough.
Officials say there wasn't a lack of water in LA, and data shows that major California reservoirs were at or above historic averages when the fires broke out. But in a letter to LA officials, Newsom called the ongoing reports of the loss of water pressure to some local hydrants during the fires and the reported unavailability of water supplies from the Santa Ynez Reservoir deeply troubling. However, a former city official told the LA Times that given the severity of the fires, the area still would have experienced serious drops in pressure even with that reservoir.
Those distribution systems aren't really designed to manage wildfire, especially wildfire that was spreading at this rate.
Meanwhile, state officials are pushing back against claims that environmental policies caused LA to have water problems.
Well, if those systems aren't managed or built to handle wildfires, you do live in an area that has wildfires. So you should build systems or separate systems that are built to handle wildfires. But again, the wind was out of control. It was very high, so they said that was a big factor.
As some blamed Newsom and the state's efforts to protect species like the Delta smeltfish by restricting the flow of some water to Southern California.
You're just letting water run into the Pacific? Because of what? A fish that no one's heard of? Does anybody care about the smelt fish?
Incoming President Trump.
So there's lots of things that we've done to the environment that are bad and that hurt things, right? So you don't always know what's going to happen. There was a study, or there's not a study, but they actually reintroduced some, I think it was Canadian wolves to the Grand Canyon or something like that because they had killed all the wolves. And the wolves started eating, like, you know, the animals, deers and stuff, but not too crazy, right? And so a lot of the vegetation grew back because it was getting overeaten. And then, like, the rivers, like, solidified because the vegetation solidified the ground around the rivers with the roots and stuff like this. And, like, putting the predators back in helped the environment. Not saying, like, the smeltfish, like, doubted predators, but you don't know what chain of the ladder matters, how much each chain of the ladder matters.
Posted he wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt by giving it less water. It didn't work, but didn't care about the people of California. Now the ultimate price is being paid.
So what's happened is a tragedy, and the governor has not done a good job.
What do you say to the criticism that the state has mismanaged water supplies?
I think the facts speak for themselves. The fact that there is water in reservoirs beyond what is average traditionally for this time of year means that we are moving water when it is available. And I want to be very...
And again, a lot of it is about the time of year, from what I'm hearing from all these stories when you listen to a whole bunch of different people.
Very clear the way that we are moving water and have been moving water and conditions that we're seeing in Southern California around access to that water. It has nothing to do with protected fish species under the law.
Carla Namath and other California officials say one of the biggest issues was actually wind.
Right. The fire is being fueled by a combination of strong winds and surrounding topography, which is making it extremely challenging for our personnel that are assigned to this incident.
Is there anything California or LA officials could have done better to mitigate the threat of these fires?
There will be lots of opportunity after this event to understand what happened. And we will learn from that, and especially in the context of climate, and we will adjust and move forward. I think it's really important for folks to understand that a fire suppression strategy for a wildland fire is not dealt with localized community fire hydrants. It's just not the right scale.
I'm not a firefighter. I don't know a lot of these things, but that's why I watch things, you know, like I said, across the spectrum from very far left media to very far right media to just Manila stuff like Good Morning America. At this moment, it's saying 5 out of 6 Los Angeles wildfires somewhat contained. This is the National News Desk. This is DD Gatton. Check her out at DD News on X, because X gonna give it to you.
Grim update out of California. The wildfires now claiming at least 11 people's lives. And as
man, as bad as those fires are, I would say 11 people's nobody wants any deaths. But man, those fires were crazy and only 11.
Of the devastation kicks in. Tensions are rising, calling for answers with a lack of resources. Jeff Harris joins us from the live desk with the very latest. Jeff?
Fire officials say they are beginning to turn the tide, with 5 out of the 6 major wildfires seeing some containment tonight. The fires now being blamed for 11 deaths. That number will likely climb. Over 12,000 buildings have been destroyed. Now, Governor Gavin Newsom demanding an independent investigation into the city's power and water departments after firefighters say many fire hydrants ran out of water, creating a complete nightmare. He's also looking into reports that a 117 million gallon water reservoir in Pacific Palisades was closed for repairs during the fires, which could have affected the water pressure.
Again, these people need to say that this is not the fire season, right? When are you supposed to repair the reservoir? Now look, I don't know if this is close or far from the fire season. I don't know if this is the best time to do the reservoir. I'm not in charge there, and if I was, I would have people helping me out. But the whole thing is, if the reservoir, say they never repaired the reservoir, right? And say this fire happened during the fire season, even this season, say it happened in 2 or 3 years, but then the reservoir broke or something and started leaking because they didn't repair it. When are you supposed to repair it?
LA's fire chief says the city failed its residents with budget cuts.
The fire department needs help.
Again, I don't know if this is the one I watched earlier, but they said that budget cuts don't necessarily mean what people think they mean. You can go over budget all the time, and actually you hear that, right? Over budget. People go over budget. Systems, the Pentagon, whoever goes over budget. Any city or state, like not official, but like a company or whatever you call it, like the state or city fire department, they can go over budget. Budget is just a plan. It's not a hard set what you got to do.
We can no longer sustain where we are. We do not have enough firefighters. And I rang the bell that these additional cuts could be very, very devastating for our ability to provide public safety.
The governor sharing this letter on X, inviting President-elect Donald Trump to meet with the hundreds of thousands of Americans displaced by those fires and see the destruction firsthand. And brand new pictures here of 4 of the 11 victims. Anthony Mitchell is being remembered by his son as a, quote, protector. Erlane Louise Kelly's granddaughter calling her sweet but stern. Victor Shaw, whose body was found with a garden hose in his hand. And also here, Rodney Nickerson, who stayed behind to try and save his home of over 4 decades.
And the details are just heartbreaking on to one of those victims. Despite evacuation orders, some California residents stayed behind to help the firefighting effort even after they lost their homes. The National News Desk, Kristen Drummond reports.
It was a half acre of smoke, and then 10 minutes later, it was 20 acres of smoke.
Alarming Nick Libinati and his sister, the first to report the Palisades fire on Tuesday.
Got my hose out to go spray out the backyard. There's a lot of brush out there.
That looked hot.
I knew it was coming for us when the hose was just spraying right back into my face.
Libinati and neighbors evacuating from the neighborhood known as the Highlands in the Pacific Palisades.
If the hose is spraying back in your face, I mean, you can't even get the water to where you want it.
The Los Angeles Fire Department says an address on North Piedra Morada Drive first reported the flames. That's where Libinati lives.
So I stayed around, helped neighbors pack and go.
Now, the 21-year-old returns, staying committed to safeguarding the community by using a shovel and bucket to put out small flames.
It's wild. It's crazy. It doesn't even feel real yet still.
Doing this with his friend, Henry Hallowell, who lost his home in the fire.
Can't really stand by. The only thing to do is move forward and help others keep what they have currently.
Driving around the Highlands, you can still find hot spots, including this fire, burning a piece of wood in front of a property completely destroyed by the blaze.
Los Angeles Department of Water and Power back in the neighborhood. Crews working to clean up around a distribution station. Fire crews also here, remaining on alert as a fire burns in a nearby canyon. Meanwhile, security patrols the area to prevent looters. While some homes burned to ash, others survived. One home even posting this warning: looters be shot.
I think it's a necessary precaution.
Second Amendment.
Violence is the last option.
Security even stopping Hallowell and Libinati. But after showing an ID, the duo continue on their mission, saving what's left of their neighborhood.
We're blessed enough to still have somewhat of a house, and just doing what I think's right.
Our parent company, Sinclair Inc., is partnering with the Salvation Army for Sinclair Cares, California Wildfires Relief, to provide critical assistance. Crews are delivering essential meals, fresh water, and relief supplies to the hardest hit areas. To donate, scan the QR code you see on your screen or go to sinclaircares.com.
Hey, donate if you can. Go out there and help if you can. We're going to take it over to Sky News now. This is Australian right-wing news, going to talk about the Pacific Palisades, the fires, all that good stuff. Gavin Newsom.
As fires rage through Los Angeles, tensions are running high among residents who want answers from their government leaders. In particular, reports fire hydrants have run dry as firefighters battle the historic blazes. Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen joins us live now. Annalise, Gavin Newsom has responded to growing criticism.
Look, he's been under fire over the last few days about the fact that there has been an issue accessing water. Now, local government officials in California have said that this is a long-running issue in California, that simply they can't keep up the water level to have the sufficient amount of water in fire hydrants all the time, that much of it does come down to...
So you saw in the last report, they said that it's at historic levels or even higher. It just depends on... This is why I watch things from across the spectrum. I watch as far right as I can find, I watch as far left as I can find, and I watch a lot of middle stuff. They all talk about the same stuff, but they all talk about it a little bit differently.
Local levels, for many living in that region, that answer's simply not good enough. They want to know why the water wasn't made available when they knew that there was going to be this strict of an issue with the fire warnings coming.
So again, why the water wasn't needed. You saw the fire department people talking about, you know, when the pipes burn and they're just open, right? There's no more water pressure. The water just flows. This is, if you know anything about pipes, I mean, even electricity is the same thing, right? Like closed circuits, open circuits, different types of things. When you cut certain things at certain parts, the flow stops. Or if you build it a certain way, the flow only stops at certain parts and can go to other parts. So it's the same with pipes. Circuits, probably a little bit different in certain ways, but like you have to, like I was saying with the tree thing, you could make a separate pipe for the emergency, like the emergency utilities, right, should have separate pipes than your everyday utilities, and your emergency utilities should be built in a way that say they're so far underground that they can't get burnt by the fire, right? They can't get, like, say they're 10, 20 feet underground, 30 feet underground, I don't know, 50 feet underground. And then you pump the water there. It doesn't matter how big the fire is. You still got your pressure, you got no heat from the fire touching those pipes, right? But that's going to cost money. You got to allocate this money, and is the money more important, or is the people, or these houses and these people and these people's lives more important? We live in a system that says saving money is more important. Let the fire burn. We'll figure it out after.
In the last few days and what we've seen, the absolute devastation rip through this region, there are also questions around whether there were enough water towers, and in particular that does start to push more into state government authority. What we are looking at is a lot of frustrated people who want answers. That's
a good probably idea too. And if there's more water towers, even if the fire, say there's this fire like this and it burnt the bottom of the water tower and busted the water tower up, what's going to happen is the water tower is going to fall over and the water is just going to disperse. Or it might not be in the exact spot you want it, but at least you'll still be using the water some, right?
In particular, here's one resident who spoke directly to Gavin Newsom, saying she wanted answers from her governor and her president.
Answers, sir.
Governor, I live here, Governor. The after school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for
I've seen this before. I don't know if I showed it or not, but I've seen this before.
Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make.
Why is the president not taking your call?
Because
he's walking around.
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it. I want to be here when you call the
So
president.
listen, there's a fire like this. All these power lines are down. Along with power lines are cell phone lines, cell phone towers, all the infrastructure. That fire was hot and crazy. So he just told her he was walking around. Like, I understand she's distressed right now. I'm probably not. You know, it's hard to think, right? I'm not there, right? I'm far away, so I can slow down. I can think. I can hit pause, right? I've hit pause many times on this video to collect my thoughts and say what I want to say, and I'm probably still not the most eloquent person. But we've all walked around at one point in time with our cell phone, holding it up in the air, like if we move 2 steps over, something's gonna happen, right? And normally when we're doing that, we're not in a fire zone that isn't. Normally what's here is different, right? The stuff is falling over. The lines are gone. If we were in like Oklahoma, right, we got to find the right line. We got to get to the right place. This is different. This is a disaster. This isn't just like a sparse town, right? This is a town that was heavily like equipped with the infrastructure you needed for cell phones, and then it got burnt away. And so now you don't know where to go. Like in Oklahoma or certain places, you know, oh, we got to go to these certain spots to find the stuff. He doesn't know. It's been burnt down. It's yesterday it was fine, or 5 days ago it was fine, and now it's not.
I'm doing that right now, and it's to immediately get reimbursements, individual assistance, and to help you. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry, especially for your daughter. I have 4 kids.
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one and building another. Governor, please tell me, what are you going to do with the president?
Everyone there lost 2 homes. Is that what she said? I don't know what that means exactly. Like, does she live in a town rich enough that everybody has 2 homes, and then it's like kind of putting all your eggs in one basket? If you put all your homes in this fireplace and then they all burn down, like I'm confused a little bit. I rewound it to see what she said.
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one and building another.
Living in one and building another.
Tell me, what are you going to do with the president right now?
We're getting the resources to help rebuild.
Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
That's all, literally.
Is it going to be different next time?
So again, why is there no water? You saw how hot this fire was. The pipes burst, all this stuff. There's no pressure. There's going to be no pressure. Like, the one thing that I would say at the beginning, they said they weren't picking up water and dropping it because the wind was too much. I would have just probably picked up ocean water and just dropped it anywhere and let the wind blow it wherever and just made the ground as wet as possible anywhere I could. Watch it blow and try to drop it in the best spot I could, or get lower and drop it, whatever, you know, like just more water, more better. But the whole pipes and busting and you know, doing the reservoir, like fixing it and stuff, or maintenance on it, that's normal stuff. That's what you're supposed to do.
The Mayor Karen Bass has also been under fire over questions of why she chose to travel to Africa for the inauguration of the president of Ghana instead of... Because
it is not the fire season. There are not supposed to be fires right now. I said, I don't think it was in this video. I think it was in an earlier video. Yeah, it was in an earlier video. If you get elected to office, everyone who gets elected to office goes on vacation every now and then. If you live in a state that has forest fires, you're probably going to go on vacation during the non-fire season, right? And they said that this is the non-fire season. So, and something happened in Africa that she wants to go participate in during the non-fire season. That's probably the time you go do some stuff. and especially when it's something you want to participate in. Now, if it was during the fire season and she did it, okay, maybe that. But again, the presidents all break the record for golfing for the previous president. Why? I don't understand. This lady right here, you are Ansley Nielsen. You are never allowed to go on vacation again. If something bad happens when you go on vacation at this news place or with your kids or anywhere that you're ever supposed to be, if you go on vacation and something bad happens, it's your fault? No, it's not how it works.
Of staying in Los Angeles when these fire warnings were coming.
And then we're trying to fight for more vacation, right? We want moms who give birth to have vacation. We just want more vacation for people because there's a lot of people not working. There's a lot of homeless people. If we let these homeless people work where other people are working, then everybody could take a little more vacation because obviously there's people there that aren't doing some stuff. But to blame a vacation on a forest fire is, to me, insane.
Through before the devastation really took hold, she's hit back at those claims that she abandoned her posting, saying that this was an official diplomatic mission for the President of the United States. And she's also hit back at accusations that she mismanaged funds around the local fire department. There has been a cut to the fire department budget of $17 million. $23 million was the original reported figure.
$17 million.
But what she has been saying is that that money was cut so that they could put more money into training firefighters to come on board. That simply doesn't answer the question for those residents about why they didn't have enough fire.
$17 million in state government spending, federal government spending is nothing. It's not. It's 2% of their budget, and again, you can go over budget if you need or want to.
Firefighters on the ground now to make sure there was enough support for those locals on the ground who are losing homes, those who are losing lives, and why the fire department had to set up a hotline to have volunteer firefighters call in from around the country to show up and do the job, that they had their own job cuts lost in their area, and they could have had their own local trained people doing this very job that they needed.
You know, I think if you go back and look at the reductions that were made, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation that we were dealing with over the last couple of days. And then there was a
her voice sounds like mine.
There was a little bit of confusion because
I don't know, she always sounds like
allocated to be distributed later on, which was actually going to support salaries and other parts of the fire department.
Salaries.
That were distributed a little
That's what I was saying earlier. That's what they need to pay attention to. If you pay people salaries, people will do the job. Just pay all their salaries. Pay all their salaries. That's all you need. If you need more firefighters, then you need more salary money. You need more money to pay the people to fight fires. It doesn't matter if they are a man or a woman. It doesn't matter if they can lift you or not. If it takes two of them, who cares? There are small men who would probably be firefighters and large women who would probably be firefighters, and it doesn't matter. If we need more things, it doesn't make any sense that people say, oh, we need more, but we don't have the money for it. Do we have the resources? It's not about the money. Okay, there it is. So my bad. On this whole right versus left, the right wants to put things, they want to organize things in money. The left wants to organize things through resources. I don't know if I said it like that before, but what are the resources that we have? Allocate those resources as evenly and as best we can or where we need them. And it's not even even, right? So a place like California that has a lot of forest fires, we need more water over here. A place that doesn't have forest fires, we don't need as much water there to fight forest fires. We just need drinking water type stuff. If there's no say earthquakes, like in Hawaii, well, I don't know, do we have earthquakes? I don't think we have earthquakes. We don't have much. But if there's no earthquakes in a spot, you don't need earthquake-proof buildings as much. If there's hurricanes, you need hurricane-proof buildings, but not earthquake-proof buildings, and vice versa. But Let's see what she has to say.
Kenny, we're standing by. This hour, the president's expected to address the nation around the federal response to these fires in Los Angeles.
We'll look out for that one. Annalise Nielsen, thank you.
Thank you. Again, Sky News 2024 confirmed its hottest year on record. Right-wing Australian news.
As the damaging effect of wildfires in California is felt, scientists have confirmed 2024 was the hottest year on record. Last year was the first to break a key global warming target, reaching 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels.
Supposed to be bad.
Clark takes a look at the data.
Wildfire tearing through one of the world's wealthiest and most celebrated cities is staggering. But the latest evidence from the EU's Climate Monitoring Service suggests the fires aren't remarkable just because of where they are, but why. Last year was the hottest ever recorded. Not everywhere, as this map of air temperatures shows, but averaged out, 2024 was 1.6 degrees warmer than pre-industrial times. Look at that data another way, and you can see just how anomalously warm 2023 and 2024 were. The analysis also found that warmer atmosphere also held the highest moisture
Look at that
ever
civil
recorded,
rights movement.
5% more than the 30-year average. Moisture that must fall as rain, causing 2024's extreme flooding, like here in Valencia in Spain, and places where that rain didn't fall, like East Africa, just had to deal with extreme heat and record drought. Our climate has become alien to us.
What we've seen last year is...
It's kind of funny to see a right-wing news station say that our climate has become foreign to us or whatever. They don't believe in... Well, I mean, I don't know if they believe in climate change or not, but the right is where the non-belief of climate change comes from.
Unprecedented, actually, in human history. You would have to go back hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, to find a planet that has had an equally high or higher temperature, and this would be a totally different world where continents were in different places and there were no human societies.
Much of that extreme weather is governed by our oceans. Compared to the 30-year average, that's this line here, the ocean warming we've seen is stark. But this is important too. Many of these peaks and troughs are linked to a natural phenomenon called El Niño, La Niña in the Pacific Ocean. The 2023-24 warm spike was partly boosted by El Niño. But look how a typically cooler La Niña period failed to bring global temperatures down by much in this warmer world. El Niño also rules California weather, but climate change has upped the extremes. Last winter, they had plenty of rain, but with the La Niña phase now, rain is falling further north, whereas in LA, there's been drought. Last year's heat and rain boosted vegetation growth, an unusually warm, dry winter, creating perfect conditions for fire, whether started by accident, arson, or nature. At the end of this year, world leaders meet in Brazil to try once again to cooperate in slowing global warming. It's a process America's next president wants not just to withdraw from, but halt. Could what's happening in Los Angeles change his thinking?
Now, talking about right-wing coverage, this is Amala Ekpunabadi. She is a Candace Owens style commentator. Ben Shapiro, she's going to be far right. She's going to be very opinionated. How they say the left or liberals focus on, like non-factual stuff or like the facts over feelings, right? So the right is really who tend to be in their feels. Let's get at this.
All right, guys, we've been talking a lot about the Los Angeles fires on this channel, and there is so much going on, so many stories entangled in the much larger story. Of course, a lot of devastation and loss as people are watching their entire livelihoods being burned down, but also a lot of stupidity, bureaucracy, and failure when it comes to the leadership here in this city. And of course, if we're going to talk about these fires, we have to talk about LAFD. Now, I'm going to show you a video that I think is going.
And so, if you've been watching my channel, you've seen firefighters talking about it's not really a lack of leadership. When these pipes burn, they burst. There's no water pressure. And there's all these hills, mountains, whatever, the Los Angeles hills. To take the water up takes water pressure. And with all this fire and the wind, and it's the wind that they said The wind is something that they've never seen before. Not the water. The water was there.
Going to blow your mind, and if it doesn't, I don't know what will. This is of an assistant chief. Her name is Christine Larson of LAFD, and she's talking about emphasizing the fact that she's a woman fire chief, and also how she would respond if she could not pull a man out of a fire. We're going to get into the other issues that the city is experiencing.
So again, I talked about this earlier. If there's not enough firefighters, you want as many as you can get. Now say you got a bunch of smaller guys and a bunch of bigger guys. Some women, some smaller women, some bigger women. Some women could pull one man out, some women couldn't. Some men could, some men couldn't. Now, would you want a whole bunch of firefighters where you got teams of 2 that could pull you out, and some people can pull you out on their own, but we have enough firefighters now to fight the fire with these little people and these vaginated people who don't have penises? Like, it doesn't make any sense. They don't have enough firefighters from front to back. There's not enough. There's not enough white ones. There's not enough black ones. There's not enough female ones. There's not enough firefighters. There's not enough Chinese ones. There's not enough Mexican ones. There's not enough firefighters. Like, maybe take all these illegal immigrants that the right wants to talk so much about and say, hey, you have to be a firefighter. I don't know. Like, if there's not enough firefighters in general, then you just want as many firefighters of any kind that you can get.
With this entire disaster that is taking place here, but first, you have got to see this.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong?
No, I'm not going to agree with that. I don't really care who comes to save me from a fire or a emergency. If you're competent, come save me. And yeah.
Long enough to do this, or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Well, when there's a fire, you don't necessarily get to choose where you're at when it starts. Say you're in the office that has no window, or like in the corner of that office, and the fire starts by the window and then by the other exit, the door exit, right? You're kind of stuck. Even if you didn't move, right? So you didn't necessarily put yourself in the wrong spot, so I would not agree with that at all. Only about 5%.
And then it closes out with only about 5% of working firefighters are women. You just made a...
So, I don't know if we need to up the percent of women, but just up the amount of firefighters, right? Even if, say, 95% of firefighters are still men, if we got 1 million more firefighters throughout the United States, and it stayed 5% were women, there'd be a whole lot more women working as firefighters. But then again, there'd be way more men.
Great case for there being more. What did I just hear? Because this video is only like 25 seconds, I'm gonna play it again because I have to make sure that we all get this in our brains, that we all get to experience this together just one more time.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Oh my gosh, so much to go over here. First of all, when in your lives have you ever been in an emergency of any kind where you need help and support from the people around you and hopefully professionals around you and thought, I hope they look like me? You know?
Right, that's what I said. So I'm not exactly sure why the fire person would want to say that. But I mean, you know, again, I doubt that person's a leftist. They're probably more of a liberal. And they don't think all the way through, right? You think of only terms of Democrat, Republican, and you don't really think of right and left and what left really is and what actual other options are.
If I'm calling EMS right now, I hope the person who shows up is a biracial female who's the same age as me who can understand my marginalized experience. No, never in my life have I thought that. And if you are somebody who's thinking that, I urge you to reevaluate because these are not the metrics by which we should be judging people who are providing services to us, especially life-saving services like putting out fires. Never in my
So I don't think you should be judging them that you want them to come, but you also shouldn't be judging them that they shouldn't be there.
life have I thought, I hope that there is a biracial lesbian who's putting out the fires right now in Los Angeles, because I feel like she's going to understand some part of my experience. Not a lesbian, I didn't just come out of the closet for this video. But let's keep talking and let's get serious here. Now, she goes on to talk about having to save a man in a fire, responding to a fire call where she has to carry a man out, clearly indicating that she's not capable of doing so. And she says, if I'm in the position where I have to carry a man out of a fire, he's the one who put himself there.
That's kind of an odd thing for her to have said. I don't agree with that. You're a firefighter. You put yourself in harm's way to save people, no matter what position they accidentally put themselves in. You don't plan on having a fire, and if you do, you probably put yourself in the best position to not get burned.
She's victim blaming men? Can you imagine anybody saying this?
Victim blaming anyone. It could be a bigger woman that she couldn't pick up. But if you're just in the wrong place of the fire, she's saying that's your fault. That's not cool at all, no matter who needs to be dragged out or picked up.
About virtually any other thing. Just for a moment, imagine a police officer responding to a sexual assault victim and saying, you know, you got yourself in this position.
You wore those short shorts. You wore that tight skirt. I am not a woman, but I have heard many women over a long time describe exactly what she's talking about. Victim blaming women for putting on makeup for Jordan Peterson. And I mean, hey, it might even be evolution. Your lips turn red because he said because you're horny or whatever, you want to have sex, so you put that on and then people look at it or whatnot. But it doesn't, like, women don't always, you don't even have to think of it like that, or even if you do, even if you are thinking of it like, oh, I want people to think I'm attractive and I'm ready to mate a little bit. That doesn't mean a man could just take you if you say no, right? So, I mean, but victim blaming is, I'm not trying to say it's okay, but it's something that a lot of people will do.
It's not on me to have to get you out of it. You put yourself here.
Oh yeah, and she's not right. I mean, not this lady. This what's her name? Amala's right here. Like, but I'm saying that the fire department lady wasn't right. They just, oh, you're too big. You put yourself in the wrong spot or whatever. Nah, that's not cool.
Ridiculous. But because ridiculous. What we care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we allow this to go on, and we allow something like this to be said by.
But what was it that he said? I mean, we just went over this, right?
You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger.
I mean, by 1968, you know, you can't say the N-word anymore. You got to use things like thug, DEI, all this BS, man. See, this Candace Owens right here, this DEI BS.
An assistant fire chief in a city that is consistently experiencing wildfires? Please. You know, you got yourself in this position. It's not on me to have to get you out of it. You put yourself here. It's ridiculous. But because we care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we allow this to go on, and we allow something like this to be said by an assistant fire chief in a city that is consistently experiencing wildfires. Please, make it make sense. And when you look into this woman's background, of course, you're going to find this. Now, this is out of the Daily Wire. Larson,
I don't know what she's about to say. I guess it's up on screen now. But from what I heard, her background is pretty good.
Was a founding member of Equity on Fire. Of course, she was a founding member of Equity on Fire.
Oh, she's going to go into her societal background rather than her professional background.
Who cares deeply about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she...
I mean, most people should care about... I mean, if you don't care about diversity, okay, but equity and inclusion, I think everyone should care about that, right?
Wants the firefighters to look like her and respond to the calls of people who look like her. But when she gets there and has an inability to do her job and she can't carry your husband out of the fire, I guess he's the one who put himself in that situation. He's the one that brought about this situation that he's now living in. Now, if a man calls in the middle of the LA wildfires that we're experiencing right now, did he put himself in that situation, to be somebody who's needing to call the fire department.
Anybody who stays after the warning or the they call it when they make you leave and they tell you gotta go. Anyone who stays there put themselves in that situation. Yes, be it man, woman, gay, straight, bi, Jew, black, Mexican. Evacuation. If they give a mandatory evacuation and you don't evacuate, then you put yourself in that position. Yes.
To save his life, to save his house? Of course not. But this is what happens when we choose. He's now living in. Now, if a man calls in the middle of the LA wildfires that we're experiencing right now, did he put himself in that situation to be somebody who's needing to call the fire department to save his life, to save his house?
Yes.
Of course not. But this is.
Don't you take responsibility for your decisions? See, this is when the right doesn't make sense. If they do something wrong or they do something silly, they're like, oh, look over there, or oh, we didn't do this. And they say the same thing about the left. And it's not even the left, they say the same thing about the Democrats. The Democrats and the Republicans are pretty much the same people. This is the WWE that we're doing here. Is that WWF wrestling is not real. It's fake. They're saying the same stuff about each other, doing the same stuff to each other.
What happens when we choose to just drop everything on the altar of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is the world that we're going to be experiencing, and we've seen it time after time. And when we try to have the conversation and say maybe this is not the direction that we need to move forward in, people call you out.
We don't need just more firefighters, total more firefighters of all people, whoever can pass the test, we need more of them. No, we need to get rid of DEI, only hire white firefighters and have less other firefighters.
They say that you're a racist. They say that you're blaming black women and women and lesbians or LGBTQ plus people. And there's no greater example of this than what recently happened on CNN when one of their hosts, Scott Jennings, tries to broach the topic of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's see the clip.
And the fire departments and the firefighters in California. And the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters.
That's exactly it. I watched this clip, and I watched it with my girlfriend. This is Samoan, right? She's like, what in the world is this man talking about? Like, we do not want white firefighters. Someone actually said this out loud.
The fire departments and the firefighters in California. And the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters.
So the program isn't that we don't have enough white men. It's that we don't have enough money to have enough people. If you have the money for the salaries, you'll have plenty of white men, plenty of Mexican men, plenty of gay men, and plenty of women, and plenty of gay women, and plenty of straight women. You'll have plenty of people, totally, if you have enough money to pay all the salaries. But if you don't have the money to pay all the salaries, look at any business. We are in a right-wing conservative capitalist society. We are run by capitalism. Money organizes our society. That is what these words mean. If we don't have enough money to pay enough firefighters, we will not have enough firefighters. Look at teachers. We don't have enough money to pay teachers. Everybody, and not everybody, a lot of people, most people, I don't even know if it's most, but there are kids in the United States. Everybody has kids. Kids everywhere. We need to pay teachers. We need more teachers. There are plenty of schools in the Hamptons and these rich areas that show that if you put enough money into a school and pay teachers enough, kids will have great outcomes. So now we have kids in Chicago. We have kids in Kalihi, Hawaii. We have kids in Waianae, Hawaii. We have kids on the west side of almost every city of the mainland who could use teachers who get paid, say, $100,000. So the teachers are excited to go to school. The teachers do not have to work a second job. The teachers can happily teach what they feel like they need to teach to the next generation of people in this world without having to work a second, third, fourth job, not knowing if they can eat, or even knowing that they can't eat all the time and still bringing stuff in for their kids. Yes, Scott Jennings, we don't want white people to be fucking firemen. That's exactly what we don't want. You're stupid. We want to pay all the firemen and have all the firemen, women, men, whatever.
We have DEI, we have budget cuts, and yet I'm wondering now.
Budget cuts, a Republican talking about budget cuts. Who wants to cut the budget of everything?
If your house was burning down, how much do you care what color the firefighters
you can respond and then we'll... Listen, I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is black women. So let me be clear.
Oh, what's she gonna say?
Let me be crystal clear in giving a dumb argument to a statement that you just made that is totally valid about what we're experiencing right now. Let me throw out this random survey study that says that black women are the most educated in this country, which again has nothing to do with what he said. And if
kind of has a bit to do with DEI. Everybody wants to talk about how if you're not a white man, you're not qualified to do anything. Charlie Kirk doesn't think you can fly a plane if you're not a white man, right? So if black women are really the most educated people in America, I think she said America, maybe the world, but probably America, then DEI shows that they're being left behind if they're not being hired at a rate of at least their percentage of the population.
If we're going to judge people on the basis of their education, which is not everything you need when it comes to being a firefighter, and we'll get to that in just a moment, then the metric you have for choosing people should be education, not whether or not they're black and they're female. But nonetheless, she throws out this fact as if it's just meant to be taken up and it's meant to just sweep under the rug.
In that sense, again, if black women are the most educated, if you're only going by education, then black women would be the highest represented in that field if you're really only going by education. And I love the pause button. The pause button always gets people at their best looks.
Everything that we're experiencing in the city of Los Angeles right now, make it make sense. And just so she knows, intelligence is not all you need when you're a firefighter. You need stamina, you need a brute force, you need a lot of strength, and sometimes...
You know what? I bet you could use numbers too, like a lot of people.
Women are capable of doing that job, and kudos to every single firefighter, male or female, that is out there right now fighting these fires in Los Angeles.
Kudos.
You are brave, and we appreciate every single ounce of work that you are putting in right now in your underfunded...
I'm going to stop on the appreciation mark, but if, again, she will be in the description. We got one last conservative to go over across this spectrum. And our last videos on the DEI LA fires is from Christopher F. Rufo. He is a right-winger I have never seen before. I watched about maybe 30 seconds to a minute and a half of this video, and I thought it would be good to cover here. And so here we are.
So now let's go to our three headlines. The first headline is something that is tragic and is really consuming all of the attention this week for the right reasons, that it is a horrible tragedy. These, of course, are the fires in and around the city of Los Angeles. The images are heartbreaking. Entire neighborhoods engulfed in flames, total chaos, people fleeing, even some people that are in my network. I lived in LA for a year. I lived up in the canyons.
So you'll notice with the right, the more it affects them or their family or the people that they know, the more they care about it. When it affects people that they've never talked to or don't see or don't care about, they don't care about those topics as much.
Sharing devastating images. And I'll leave it to others to do the breaking news reporting, the kind of hard analysis of the path of the fire and the wind and the atmosphere. But there's an interesting angle that I think is worth discussing, and it's the relationship between these fires and DEI. The path of the fire and the images. And I'll leave it to others to do the breaking news reporting, the kind of hard analysis of the path of the fire and the wind and the atmosphere.
The hard analysis of why fires burn and how they burn in the wind and the atmosphere.
And it's the relationship between these fires and DEI.
Because black people just make fires happen.
That's a ridiculous thing.
If you're gay, your pants are on fire. So when you walk around LA and then the wind blows, you just set forest fires and house fires because you're a homo and because you're black. Because your DEI fires just happen. What is wrong with these people? Like, this dude thinks he's so Ben Shapiro smart. It makes absolutely no sense. And then we can't beat these guys. That we can't put together a coalition of just normal thinking, normal brained people that aren't like, oh, you're black, you can't fly a plane. Oh, you're gay, you just set fires, you're so flaming that actually you're so gay, you're flaming so hard that when you walk around the town it really does set fire. Are you like these guys?
DEI is such a secondary, tertiary, even tertiary concern. These are fires, and you can't blame the fires on DEI. DEI didn't cause the Los Angeles fires.
Oh, wait.
And of course,
DEI and the LA fires.
Yes, of course. DEI did not cause these horrific wildfires.
What a fantastic statement for you to make. You understand that DEI did not cause these fires. But now let's get into why DEI
or the fast blowing wind. That's obviously true. But where I think DEI...
But because, see, when you're gay, you know there's a lot more wind. And then the fires are spread more.
DEI comes in, and it's important to think about, is that DEI does harm competency at any organization that adopts it.
Right, so like, you take the NFL. There was DEI in the NFL, like in America, from the inception. And the NFL and most sports leagues held DEI much longer than, I don't know if it's much longer, but it's, yeah, because the Civil Rights Act, 60s, 70s. So white people then couldn't just be hired just because you're white, and you couldn't just deny black people because they're black. So, we really stopped DEI for most people in the 60s, 70s, and had to re-implement it a little bit in a way. But, okay, going off the NFL. When I was young, you even look at me now when you see my picture, I look kind of white. My mom's white, my dad's black. When I was young, I was a bit darker. I had an afro, I had braids, I had dreads, I had all that stuff, right? And so I played football. My coaches told me, a few coaches told me I wasn't smart enough to play quarterback. And this was when I was a young kid. And I'm like, all right. My dad told me to listen to coaches. I listened to him, all right. But when I played backyard football, I was always the quarterback, and we always dominated. Skip forward, I led the state in touchdown passes my senior year. I went to a Wayne High School, which is a big school now. It was a big school then, but now it's a little bit bigger. They send kids to all over colleges and stuff like that, whatever. But anyway, that being said, the NFL. Doug Williams was the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, such a big thing, in the 80s. Warren Moon was the next black quarterback for a long time, and then only Randall Cunningham, and there was all these one at a times, and now almost half the league is black. Now that we're getting closer to meritocracy in the NFL, you can see what's happening. And so when you get closer to the meritocracy in the real world, white people want to call it DEI because they use DEI for so long so that they can be the only ones doing stuff. Now that you undo what is actual DEI, and the meritocracy lets other people overtake these white males who were the only ones allowed to vote, who were the only ones that gave credence to themselves, right? So now that there's more meritocracy and they're falling behind, or not just being the only one, they're not necessarily falling behind, you're falling into your place. You should represent the percentage of who you are. You shouldn't be 99% of anything. You should be about, 56 to 80-something%? I don't know. Whatever the number is. It's shrinking a little bit by a white person, but, I'm mixed, and I figure that I'm just as good as any white person in my family, so that shouldn't be a bad thing.
And the Los Angeles City and the Los Angeles County fire departments have been on the forefront of pushing DEI at the highest levels. I spent some time looking at the organizational charts and some of the documentation from these places. You know, they're putting equity departments, DEI initiatives at the very top of their list of priorities. In fact, the Los Angeles City Fire Department.
So equity departments, all the fire stations have the same amount of, or the equivalent amount of equipment for their area. Like if you live in a poor area and you have a firehouse, you have enough stuff for that area, or if you have a rich area, you have the same amount as the poor area. That would be like equity in a fire department. Or what he's saying is that he would say, oh, these rich people, they should have all the stuff, and these poor people, they should just have what they can afford.
Which boasted of having the first, LGBTQ female fire chief, celebrating her accomplishments as an expression of DEI.
And we've gone over that on this channel at least, I think, twice. She's got a lot. She was a firefighter for like over 20 years. She's been a chief, an assistant chief, and all these and heads of different things. Her credentials are immaculate. She qualifies for this job, bar none.
Actually made DEI and having a progressive work environment their number 2 and number 3 priorities in their multi-year strategic plan. The first, of course, was fight fires, protect property. But numbers 2 and 3 were to push DEI and to maintain a progressive.
So when you have a understaffed anything, there's not enough firefighters. There's not enough white men firefighters. This dude, this white man right here, is not an LA firefighter. You could add 1 to the stats. If there was such a thing, such an abundance of white male firefighters, then this wouldn't be a problem, because they would hire you all, plus all the women that qualify. Well, they would hire all the ones that qualify, plus all the women and all the DEIs and all the thugs and all the niggers. They would hire them all, right? But because there's not enough money for the salaries to pay the people to do the thing, there's not enough spots. It doesn't matter if they're white males, gay females, blue transsexuals. It doesn't matter. Like Joe Biden said.
Way further down the list were things like improving disaster response and implementing new technologies.
Oh, BKB, implementing new technologies. That is what the left wants to do. The right is always wanting to cut budgets, cut taxes. How do you implement new technologies when all you want to do is cut taxes?
This tells me
Just tell me.
This organization that actually faced budget cuts and they were cutting essential services not only kept DEI and the millions in spending on DEI, but they actually elevated that just above the actual, fighting fires, protecting property, saving lives. And so you see DEI as a focus instead of the actual mission of the organization. That's always the case. The mission of the organization and DEI are never the same thing. And in fact, unless you're a DEI organization, they're always in conflict, because DEI simply means lowering standards for certain groups in order to get representation.
So that's not at all what it means? DEI is saying that, so pre-DEI, or what American DEI is lowering standards so white men can do all the jobs. It doesn't matter if there was a black guy that was a better pilot in the 1960s or 70s. The white guy is going to get the job. And it's been like that in the United States for almost all of its existence. That is what these guys are complaining about. They used to get the jobs without having to try as hard. They didn't have to go to school as much. They didn't have to do this. They didn't have to do that. But now they were saying, oh, we're going to let everybody else test in and see who really is the best. Why are we letting these black people do this? Why are we letting these gay ladies do this? Yeah, man, like, it was easy for you, and I understand. We want it. It's much nicer when stuff is easy. It is. But hey, you shouldn't have brought us here, right? If you didn't want us, you shouldn't have brought us. You should have built it yourself. You didn't want to do that. Now, hey, DEI built this country.
From those supposedly oppressed groups.
Supposedly oppressed
and so you
groups.
see it impacting hiring. Certainly at a place like LA Fire Department, they make...
I don't leave this guy here. He's an idiot to me. These supposedly oppressed groups. DEI is what America was built on. It was free labor, whipped labor. It was acceptable at the time, they say. And you got to change the times by changing the laws and slapping DEI or whatever in to get the white man to stop killing us. I don't know. So, oh shoot! I apologize about that. That snuck up on me. But as you see, man, we checking out the wildfires from across the spectrum, doing it all ways we can.